cells. So basically, it is all about connecting the biology of this disease to the possibility of new treatment for oral cancers.
Okay, that sounds actually quite complicated, but like we both know, you do belong to the Translational Cancer Biology Department. So it's TCB for short, right? So
Yes,
maybe you can just
correct.
like summarize in one simple sentence, like what exactly does your department do? Like what does the whole thing do? Because in our organization, we have like a lot of departments. So what is it that the TCB department does and what makes it so unique as compared to the other departments?
Yeah, so in our unit, basically, we are studying the biology. We understand how the tumor cells form, what really driving this cancer cells to grow continuously or survive and keep on proliferating and causes so much problem to the human. And then we also understand that some factors that really contributing to why is it so hard to treat these patients, even though there are some standard of care already available out there. So what we are trying to do here is really to understand all this, looking into the biology, find new target genes, and then basically we want to translate what we know from the bench. Bench means the laboratory bench, what we are doing in the lab, into the bedside. So basically, it's turning into something that is will be beneficial to the patients in the clinic.
So basically, because cancer is a cell, so you
Correct.
just want to understand like the biology. So basically, like the structure, why it does this, why it does that. And by understanding it a bit better, then you can actually, transfer the results from the labs. And then maybe you can think of a treatment in the future or
Correct.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what cancer research is all about in the first place. We
Yeah.
do a lot of research and whatnot in the lab because we want to come up with better treatments for cancer patients in the future
Yeah.
and hopefully also to prevent it. But again, that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So, what specific type of cancer does your department focus on, Payson? Because there's like so many, there's like breast cancer, it's a very common one. So which one is it that you're focusing on?
Yeah. So we are actually focusing on head and neck cancers. So as I mentioned, we are from to myself, my project work mainly focusing on oral cancer, but my colleague are my team members are focusing on the other head and neck cancer, which is called the nasopharyngeal cancers. Yeah.
I see. So some people may not fully understand what is head and neck cancer. Because maybe you can try explaining to them like, what is it? What's the difference between a head and neck cancer, oral cancer, and also nasopharyngeal cancer?
Yeah. So head and neck cancer actually is a group of cancer that actually happen in the region of head and neck. It can
So
be
up here.
happening, yeah, so yeah, it's here to here. So it
Okay.
can be in any region inside the mouth, and the tonsil, in the throat, and it can be even at the lymph node on our neck region. So we call it as head and neck cancers.
Okay, okay. So that means that oral cancer and also nasopharyngeal cancer is a type of head and neck cancer.
Yes, yes. They are
Okay,
actually
okay.
the most common ones in the head and neck cancers. Yeah.
Oh, the most common one. So
Yeah.
even here in Malaysia, is it common for
Yes,
for
correct.
Malaysians?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So
So
for nasopharyngeal cancer, actually it is the fifth top most common cancer among the Malaysian men.
oh, I
And
see.
for oral cancer is also very common across Asian countries. Yeah.
Oh, I
That's why
see. I see.
we are really focusing on these two cancers in at Cancer
Mhm.
Research Malaysia.
Yeah, because based on my experience, especially when you talk about cancer with your family, relatives, or friends, they don't really bring up about head and neck cancer. They
Yeah.
don't talk about oral cancer and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if some of us, well, at least in my personal experience, we know someone who's had like oral cancer or nasopharyngeal cancer, because we usually think of like the very, very common ones like breast cancer because
Yep.
it's the number one cancer that affects women. It's not just here in Malaysia, it's also everywhere else across the world. And then we think of lung cancer. And then but when you mention about head and neck cancer, they'll be like, I've never really heard of it. Like what exactly is it? So hopefully our attendees for this webinar, they now know head and neck cancer and that it consists also of oral cancer and nasopharyngeal cancer.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about head and neck cancer. Like, what's the situation here in Malaysia? Like, is it severe? Is it like something that we should be concerned about? Because you did say that it's number 5 in Malaysia for men specifically. So what can you say about that?
So, according to the statistic, as I mentioned, is the top 5 for
Mhm.
NPC, the nasopharyngeal cancer, for Malaysian men, and for oral cancers, although it's not as high as the NPC, but it actually also impact um the Malaysian men a lot, especially from the Indian population. And what I think people should know about the hair and neck cancer, especially for Malaysia or in the Asian region, is that this disease is actually quite is greatly linked to the lifestyle that we have here or
Uh-huh.
in the in the Southeast Asia. So the lifestyle factors that I'm talking about here is like drinking alcohol, smoking, and then chewing bitter quick. So
Yes.
these are the lifestyle factors that have been shown to be greatly linked to the hair and neck cancers, especially for oral cancers, and that actually will increase the risk of getting this disease.
Interesting. Yeah, because I also heard that the indigenous people that
Yep,
live in East Malaysia, because they like to chew the daun sirih and the
yep,
buah pinang, so we call it betel quid, as you've
yep.
mentioned in English. So the daun sirih and buah pinang, when they chew it, it increases their risk of getting oral cancer as well, because I think the down sirih and the buah pinang has like some sort of a carcinogens or something like
Yes,
that.
you're
The
right.
things that actually causes cancer. So we call them carcinogens.
Yeah, so
So,
you are right. So this carcinogen actually they can damage the DNA in the
oh, I
epithelial
see.
cells, which is the
In the
lining
mouth.
cells on in our mouth. That's where
Ah,
that's how the oral cancer can start from because of
I
the changes in
see.
the mutation or in the DNA. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Since you've mentioned that oral cancer and also NPC is affected by lifestyles, like certain lifestyles, so does that mean that if you do not adopt these lifestyles, like say for example, drinking alcohol, smoking, and also chewing betel nut, that actually reduces your risk of oral cancer? Does that
Um, I
make sense?
yes,
Yeah.
I think that's the concept of it. So when we talk about the risk factor, when you have this
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle factors, it can actually increase your risk of getting this cancer. If you don't have, there's no guarantee that you won't get it.
Yes, that's no
But
guarantee, of
of course,
course.
I think we need to let people to aware that this kind of habits actually will expose you to have the risk of getting cancers lah. So I think it's very
Mm.
important to know and yeah, to maintain a good lifestyle. Yeah.
Definitely makes sense. Okay. Okay. So I think our audience, they more or less know about, what head and neck cancer is, and also how's the situation of head and neck cancer here in Malaysia. So now we go into a bit about your work, because we have this so-called problem here in Malaysia with head and neck cancer. So how is our organization, Cancer Research Malaysia, and your department in specific, how is it revolutionizing new ways to treat head and neck cancer?
So traditionally, when we talk about head and neck cancers treatment,
Yep.
the standard of care is still around the surgery, chemotherapy, or radiotherapy. So this treatment has been important and they are still important for the cancer patients. But this treatment could be quite tough on the patients also. As you know, this kind of treatments can have a lot of side effects.
Yes.
And sometimes patients are at one stage, or we call it like late stage or stage 3 and 4,
Stage four.
they
Yep.
usually get lesser um, the treatment is less effective compared to those that are at the early phase. So this
Yes.
actually brings down the survival rate. So we are talking about like if it is a 5 year survival rate, it actually can from the early stage usually is about like 80 to 90% of the survival rate means that 10 patients, 8 or 9 of them, they can survive 5 years after the diagnosis. But if they are at the late stage, usually when the treatment is less effective, and therefore it also contributes to a lower survival rate, which is only like 50%, meaning that
I
5 out
see.
of 10 can survive in 5 years. So you can see like there's a big difference in the different stage of the disease and whether the treatment is able to cure the cancer effectively.
I
So what
see.
we are doing when we are seeing this as an issue and the challenges of treating cancers, um, what cancer research are trying to do is to find new treatment options that can target the cancer more specifically. So we call it as a targeted therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is one of the approach that we are taking, especially for the translational cancer biology unit. And in order to do that, we actually built a cell line bank. This is actually the cancer cells that were derived from the Malaysia patients,
Okay.
and we make it into the cell line. So if you imagine this cell line is like a mini model of the disease, and we use this to together with some advanced technologies such as CRISPR. Um,
Okay.
then we dig deeper into the genes that actually drive the development of the oral cancer, or those genes that are enable the cancer cells to survive. And then from there, we develop treatments that are able to target on these specific genes.
Okay, so we are really diving into like the really sciencey things right now. So let's just break it down. Okay, so you did mention about the cell lines.
Yeah.
So from the so can you what exactly is the purpose of this? So how do you, I'm curious, how do you collect them and how do you keep them here in the lab?
Okay, so this cell line, when we call it as a cell line, basically these are the cancer cells um, coming from a patient's uh,
Mhm.
tumor tissue that was
Ish.
taken during their surgery.
So it's like
So
a biopsy, right?
yeah, it's a piece of the tumor that was cut out during the
Okay.
surgery, and then we actually have the person to go and collect that piece of tissue that we bring
Um,
it back to the lab, and then we do some further processing. So in
okay.
the lab, of course, there's a lot of the protocol that I'm not going to talk about the very
Yeah.
scientific protocol here, but we
Okay.
do process them to make them into a single cells that eventually it will become immortal. That will be like growing indefinitely. So then
Oh, I
we call it
see.
as a cell line. And this is the
Oh,
unique part of having this cell line model, because this cell line model, they are immortal. That's why we can actually use them over and over again. So this is a very important resources that we have here, that we use this kind of model to do a lot of cancer research here. So in the
mm,
cancer research, we use this model study different aspects in the cancers, and one of it is like what I have just briefly mentioned is about looking into the new target genes, see what actually drives the cancer cells to grow continuously, or their ability to be able to survive. And we also test different types of drugs to see which drug actually can kill the cancer cells, and then we will bring this drug forward to see to do a lot more of the validation, and hopefully eventually this drug can be bring to the clinic and benefit the future in one day.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, very complicated process, because you have to collect the cells and then you have to do research on these cells and you have to use drugs and all of that. So, sounds very, very complicated. But of course, you're the expert. I'm not the expert because I'm no researcher, I'm not a scientist. But yeah, it really, yeah. So basically, these cells are like never ending, because you did say that you are sort of like immortalizing them, right?
Yep.
So because that's how important they are, because I assume that the patient whom you got these cells from are no longer with us. So if we lose them somehow, then we won't be able to get these things and we won't be able to work on them anymore. So so how are these cells like preserved and kept? Like, do you keep them in like a cold storage or a freezer or something like that? Because obviously you can't just leave them out on the table and just, let them be, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree with you what you have said just now. So this patient, most of them, they are actually no longer here. And therefore this cell line that we have managed to establish previously is really, really precious. So what we are doing in the lab here, basically we put some chemical to preserve them. And usually we will keep them nicely in the cold storage, we call it as the liquid nitrogen. So we have like a few big tanks in our laboratory, and to keep this kind of precious cell lines. Yeah.
Liquid nitrogen is like the fancy things that they use in restaurants, right? With the smoke and everything. Is it the same gas, or is it a completely different one? Because you're using it for science, right? You're not using it for food.
I am not too sure about the restaurant one, but it's quite a common things that we get when we are talking about like doing laboratory work. So this is a
I
very
see.
ideal cool temperature if you want to store like samples like the
Yeah,
bacterial samples or the human cell line samples.
yeah.
So basically it helps to preserve this kind of samples safely, and whenever that we need to use the cell line, basically we can just take out from the cold storage and just go to the room temperature and give the necessary nutrient like the what we call it as the cell culture media. Then they should be able to revive and grow well. Yeah.
Yeah, even you have to take care of the cancer cells, right? That's right, because you can't
Yes.
just leave them there. You
Yeah.
definitely
Correct.
have to keep them cold, because if you leave them there on the table, like in room temperature, they probably just like die or something like that. Then
Yep.
with dead cells, then you can't do anything with it anymore. So yeah, cold temperatures, and then you have to take it out and then you have to feed it and whatnot. Yeah, it's like owning a pet, but not quite. It's very, very different. Yeah, I have to take care of all of these things, because again, you can't be able to take them anymore, because you can't find them anymore, again,
Correct.
because the patients are no longer with us. And if we want new ones, then we have to go out and, ask for their consent and stuff before we actually get the samples.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, so we now know more. We have a better understanding of the cell line banks and how you're managing it. So earlier, when we were talking about something else, you did mention about CRISPR.
Yep.
So this is something that a lot of us may not be familiar with. So can you explain what this CRISPR thing is, and what exactly is how does it work? What does this have with the cell line bank, the connection between the both of them?
Okay, so CRISPR is actually a technology.
Okay.
It's a technology that have been used widely in the past few years. And people always describe CRISPR as a pair of molecular scissors. So
Okay.
I believe everyone know what is scissors,
Seizures.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a molecular scissors. And this is actually a very powerful tool that scientists or researcher will always use this CRISPR technology to cut the DNA
Oh, okay.
so that they can switch off the gene precisely. So
I
you can just
see.
imagine like there's a room full of the switch off light. So if you want to switch off the light or that is representing like a gene here, we are using the CRISPR to in this case to switch off every single gene and see what actually happened in the cancer cells. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So basically you have to like find that one gene because okay, a single cell has like thousands and thousands of genes. There's like a lot of DNA. So DNA is just like not one thing, so it's a lot of
Yes.
it. So you are
Correct.
trying to find the one thing which is keeping the cancer cell alive so that you can cut that thing, as you mentioned, the scissors, then the cancer cell will die.
Yeah,
Did
so
I get it right?
basically we are cutting what we have done previously, we are like cutting one by one. So if
Mm-hmm.
let's say the gene is very important, then the cancer cells after the DNA being cut for that particular gene, then the cancer cells will die. But if let's say that gene that we cut doesn't affect the survival of the cancer cells, so meaning that it is not essential for the cancer cell survival. So then we only focus on those after we cut the gene out, and
Okay.
then they got killed. So there will be our target genes that we believe that those are the ones that enable the cancer cells to continue to survive.
Okay, so you have to find that one correct one, and once
Mhm.
you've identified it, then theoretically speaking, then you can start working on how maybe treatments or drugs can like specifically target that one naughty gene, right? So I
Yes,
think I think
correct.
that's how that works, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all about precision, as you've already mentioned, like targeted therapy. We want it to be accurate as much as possible. So yeah, so hopefully now the audience understands a bit more about CRISPR. So how exactly is CRISPR used to like combat head and neck cancer, because it's all over there. So exactly how does it work? Like maybe you can explain more on that, especially with regards to head and neck cancer, since you're working on that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like what I have described just now, we have using the tool to look into the DNA in the
Okay.
oral cancers, right? Then
Okay.
we, as of now, we actually have found like hundreds of the genes that are essential to keep the
Oh,
cancer cells to
that's a
survive.
lot. That's a
Yeah, that
lot.
is a lot, but
I thought
we
it's
do
just
have
one,
done.
it's just a lot.
Yeah, and that there is actually hundreds of it, but we now have we have done many different validations, and now we are zooming down to a few that we think is most promising. And recently,
Okay.
we are really focusing on a particular gene that we call ADA1, and with that findings, we actually have applied some grant from the government, the MOST government body to get some funding. And actually from there, we have started the project um, to develop treatment that can target on this ADA1 gene that is essential for the oral cancers. So
Okay.
when you're talking like about how to use the technology to combat the head and neck cancers, that's the path that we are taking. So
Okay.
basically, just to um, keep it simple, basically we find a target, then we
Mhm.
find a way to target it by making drugs, or we can also explore like whether there's any existing drug that has been used for other purposes. And then if they are able to target the same gene as well, then it will be our potential drug as well.
Mm,
So So this is what we call targeted therapy. It can target on the specific genes that is contributing to that is driving these cancer cells. And with that, we hopefully it can be more effective and with less effect. And when we are talking about the targeted therapy here, another strategy that we are also exploring in our TCB team is to combine with other treatment that has been approved by the FDA. So for oral cancer, there's another treatment arm called immunotherapy. So we are also looking into this kind of strategy by combining the targeted therapy that targets on these specific genes with the existing treatment and see whether it can actually offer a better treatment outcome to the patients. So that is what we are trying to do here for the head and neck cancers.
I see. Okay, so how exactly is this targeted therapy administered? Is it like an injection or is it like medicine? Because I really don't know.
I guess most of the targeted therapy is through oral administration. I mean, like in human, they probably are taking the pill, but there will be some cases they are like giving through injection. Yeah, it depends
Oh,
on.
I see.
There are many targeted therapies for other diseases out there, so it really depends on um what is the form of the drug itself, like that can
Uh,
be best administered to in
I see.
which route of administration. Yeah.
See. Yeah, I'm sure because a lot of us are more familiar with chemotherapy and radiotherapy, you know, all these waves like killing your cancer cells and also the healthy cells, and then there's also surgery sometimes. So yeah, very interesting that we got to know more about targeted therapy and how it works and how exactly it's developed in the lab, you know, from getting the cancer cells and then bringing it to the bank and then using it for CRISPR and etc. So this is basically the whole process. And although it may seem easy now that we are talking about it, I'm sure it's a very, very complex thing that is quite tedious. Again, you are the expert on it, so I can definitely tell that it's not easy work at all. And of course, all of these requires funding. Like we need, like, because you did mention that you did apply for grants and from MOSTI, and you have to actually get a lot of money in order to conduct all of these researches, and it also takes time. And sometimes it doesn't even give you the results that you want. It may be something completely different from what you expected, right? So it's all about that's basically how life is as a scientist. Like you have to deal with all those things, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So now, okay. So going back to your department, the TCB, Translational Cancer Biology Department. So what would you consider its greatest achievement? Like, what's the best thing that you and your team have achieved?
I think the greatest achievement for the TCB team in the recent years is that we have uncovered the essential genes for the head and neck cancers using the CRISPR tool that I just briefly mentioned about that. So what is so proud of it and what is so special about this achievement is that um, this data from the CRISPR screen to look into this gene, actually they are coming from the model, which is very unique because they are coming from the Malaysian patients. So what it means is that what we have found so far here is actually very highly related and relevant to our own population, our people.
Yes, definitely.
And therefore the subsequent discovery that we are aiming to, which is to find new options or new drugs, treatment options, or the new drugs, it will be really helping the Malaysian and also the Asian countries. Yeah.
Okay, very nice, actually. And then since now we know about your greatest achievement, now it's the opposite. So what is the biggest challenge that you have faced so far?
So I would say this is a very common challenges when we are talking about doing research. So
Mhm.
our biggest challenges here is about funding. So you are right, just now you're mentioning that it takes time and we
Yes.
have to use a lot of money because every single experiment, basically, we have to do a lot of validation and really make sure that the integrity of the data is really what we are seeing in the paper or when we talk to the public. This is
Mm-hmm.
a really a true data. So therefore, it takes time, and we have to use a lot of money because we have to buy all those
Equipment.
equipment and then
Yeah.
consumables, the
Yeah.
reagent in order to conduct a full set of experiment. And in fact, we actually have to do a lot of different experiment for the whole project. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I would say funding is the biggest part when we talk about the challenge in the
Yeah,
research. Yeah.
definitely.
So in Cancer Research Malaysia, because we are the non-profit organization, so we when we talk about the funding, we usually have to write the research grant. So we have to compete with so many different research
It's a
center,
competition.
yeah, either locally or internationally
Yeah,
to get
apply
this
for it is
grant.
one thing, and then you sit back and pray that you actually get picked, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so it's really hard. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
bit like a competition for scientists, all over the world and also in Malaysia.
yeah, exactly. It's very competitive.
Oh my God, I can imagine. So that means that when you actually write your application for the grant, it has to be like very well justified, and you sort of like have to convince the government or the organization or society that is providing you with this grant money that it's worth giving you money to actually do this scientific research. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, it sounds very scary or something. Oh my God, sounds really, yeah, competitive. It's just not as easy as just like writing things down and just like leaving it there. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay. Okay, that's really nice. Yeah. So as you've already mentioned, so yeah, the thing is that we are held back by certain things because we are non-profit. So but then at the same time, everything in this world revolves around money. So that's why funding is really, really important. And that's why we sort of like do these things in the first place, like conduct this webinar, because we want to bring awareness and also attention to the Malaysian public about what scientists like Yee Pei San does, why is it so important, why is it necessary in the first place, and of course, and most importantly, why is it necessary for you to support us and support our scientists, because they're doing all of these things in order to combat cancer, the big C that everyone is really scared to talk about. Everyone is afraid of getting it in their lifetime. So yeah, so hopefully we still do have a very long way. I'm not saying that, of course, there's no way that you're gonna discover something, a miraculous chance of discovering like a one cure for all treatment for cancer. Like, I mean, it would be really nice if that's the case, but it will take a lot of time and it will also require a lot of money. So those two things are something that can be quite difficult to attain. Of course, you can't buy time, but for money, acquiring it is for something else. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so something to mention about the funding that we got for Cancer Research Malaysia
Yeah.
to conduct all this research work. So other than the research grant that I have mentioned, we actually
Okay.
also got a lot of support from the public or the donor in Malaysia that helps with this help us with the research work. So actually, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has actually supported us because we do have some previous project that actually made possible because of the support from the donor and the community. So this is
Mhm.
really, really important to us, and we really, really appreciate that. And I also would like to take this chance to give a shout out to more people to get involved. Either you can donate to us so that we can get more funding to do the research, or you can also become the volunteer, either in
Yeah.
the science part or join us in the, for example, the fundraising activity. this all means a lot to us. So because I think every single bit of the support actually can bring us move our research forward at Cancer Research Malaysia. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So besides that, of course, at Cancer Research Malaysia, we do also have some fundraising events. So there is one really big one coming up at the end of this week. So we have the Terry Fox Run at Putrajaya. And yeah, maybe you could just give it a Google and check it out. So it's just Terry Fox Run. So I believe right now you can still register for the run. You just have to give a donation of 50 ringgit. We'll be providing you with a t-shirt, goodie bags, and lots of things. And also, it's a non-competitive run, so you can just go there, you can jog, you can walk, you can bring your friends and family or whatsoever. So yes, this one is one of our biggest events of the year in order to raise donations and funds for, for cancer research. It's all done for cancer research. And yeah, so that's one of the many ways that you can support us. And as Pei San has already mentioned, you can also, do it for internships if any of you are maybe university students who are interested in getting a bit more of a hands-on practice on whatever goes on in the lab, especially regarding cancer. So yeah, so actually that's all the questions that I have for you today, Pei San.
Okay,
So
great.
bravo to you. Thank you so much for actually answering all of them. Hopefully they weren't too difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
No, it's all right. I think you answered really well. I think it's very clear cut, and hopefully the people who are attending this webinar sort of better understand what's going on here in Malaysia in terms of head and neck cancer. We have a problem for this because of how common it is, especially for men. And and what are the things that you are doing in the lab in order to tackle this problem? So that's exactly what our scientists like you are doing right now. All right. So before we conclude this webinar, so we are now open for like a 5 to 10 minute Q&A session. For our attendees, if any of you have any questions for Pei San or I, just feel free to write it in the chat box below, or you can write it in the Q&A box. If there's something that you're not clear about, or maybe you want to ask a bit more about head and neck cancer, oral cancer, NPC, nasopharyngeal cancer, or maybe you want to know more about what Pei San does in the lab, then sure, you can go ahead and ask. Otherwise, then we can proceed to the next bit and then conclude this webinar. So maybe just give them a couple of seconds, maybe a minute to type any questions. Or if you don't have any questions, you can say that no questions so that you can let us know instead of just like leaving us here hanging, and waiting. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, I'm gonna think that you are all experts in head and neck cancer right now. You know a bit about cell lines, you know a bit about like a CRISPR, and then Annie, one of our colleagues is here. Yeah, thank you so much for supporting us, Annie. Yep, thank you. Okay. Okay, so I guess no questions. Oh, okay, so we have one from Lena. Okay, so her question is, has this cancer cell targeted therapy been successfully done in other countries? So this one's for you, Pei San.
Yeah, so actually there are targeted therapy that have been made success in, of course, in other countries. So that's why we are thinking that this is a promising approach, because treating cancer, there can be many different ways, like what we have mentioned, the radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and now we are talking about the targeted therapy. And yeah, so the answer basically yes, it has been successfully developed, and in certain patients that have we so-called like we call it as like biomarker, with certain biomarkers that manage to stratify the patients that are more beneficial to this kind of targeted therapy. Actually, they manage to get a lot of benefits from this targeted therapy treatment. Yeah. So the answer is yes.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Lena. Any other questions? So otherwise, I'm just going once, going twice, and then, sold. But this is not an option. Okay, okay. So maybe not anymore. I think everyone's quite clear what's going on right now. I think that's a good thing. Sometimes if they don't have questions, it means they understand what's going on. Yeah, I was just a bit confused that sometimes it might get a bit too sciencey, and that's why people can't understand. But again, that's the reason why we conduct webinars in the first place. We bring scientists or we bring doctors on board so that they can talk about their work, and why their work is so important. And of course, my responsibility would be to make everyone understand what is going on, right? I mean, that's essentially my job after all as a science communicator, translating all these sciencey things into simpler things that people, that don't have a science background, that so that they may understand. Okay, so I think no other questions. So lucky you, Pei San. Yeah, I'm just joking. Okay, okay, perfect. So okay, so now we'll move on to one last bit. So I think a lot of you have noticed that in the description when you are registering for this webinar, so we mentioned about providing e-certificates. So I'm sure some of you may be interested in that. Okay, so I'm going to share with you something right now that shows you the exact instructions on what exactly the whole process is and how you can actually see it. Okay, I think that's perfect. Okay, let's just get this done here. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, let me just get rid of this hyper distinction. Okay, perfect. So this is how you get our webinar e-certificate. So after this webinar, okay, so today is the 25th of September. So tomorrow on the 26th, do check your email inbox because you will be receiving a feedback from us. So all you have to do is just click on that link, you fill out your details, and at the last bottom section, there is it will ask you a question whether or not you want an e-certificate. So if you want an e-certificate, you have to give your name according to your NRIC, preferably. Don't put any weird nicknames there because we're going to be showing it on the e-certificate. So it's best if you can give your full name. And then you also have to provide a minimum donation of RM1, just a minimum. And then you just have to take a screenshot, whether or not you did it through a bank transfer or such and such. So all the details will be there. So you attach your proof of your donation and then you submit the form. And your e-certificate will be sent to you within 30 days. So if you have any other questions regarding the e-certificate, or if you have not received it within 30 days, just contact us through the email address that's provided down there. So it's de-comms@cancerresearch.my. So if you want, you can just take a picture of this because I'm just going to be closing this PDF file shortly. So hopefully, yeah, this is straightforward. Hopefully you can all follow through. So it'll be easier if you can actually take a picture of it. But the process should be really, really simple and straightforward. There shouldn't be any problems. Okay, so I will stop sharing now. So hopefully that clears up any questions about how to obtain the e-certificate. And okay, so perfect actually, because we can finally conclude the webinar for today. So again, Pei San, thank you so much for taking your time, and also well, thank you so much for answering the questions and also being here today for our webinar. And I also want to thank our audience, for registering and signing up. And again, if you are still interested in learning more about Cancer Research Malaysia, you can check out our social media. We're there on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and also, well, keep a lookout for any other future webinars. So it's usually there on our social media. So if you want to see me again, if you want to see some of my colleagues again, then yeah, by all means, do join the webinars. And yeah, thank you so much. So I think it's already lunchtime. So a lot of us are very eager to go and makan. We have to eat. And yeah, thank you so much. And we hope to see you again and also receive your support.
Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Right. Thank you, Payson. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.